What's up, everybody? Chaos Bikes and Beta Motorcycles presents three-wheeler engine disassembly and rebuild. Here we go. I started off by loosening a couple of the nuts on the valve cover gasket. Now I'm pulling the starter off. You'll see here I'm removing the C-clip and the neutral indicator. Most of the bikes I've seen don't have it. Mine does. Just a little plastic ring. Now I put a bunch of Moto Seal RTV on there, so I gotta break that RTV seal. And you'll also see that yellow ring there. That's part of the decompressor system. Mine's disabled, so it doesn't actually stick to the starter anymore. And that's also stuck with RTV to the case there, so I'm gonna peel that off. Usually it stays with the starter, like usually it's one piece because there's a wire holding it, but yeah, like I said, I disabled mine. I use a manual switch. Now I'm removing the timing window there. We're gonna need that later. We're gonna start digging into the CDI where the mechanical advance is. Make sure you don't lose that gasket that's on there, it's important. You might have a bolt there, you might have a screw. We're taking off the ring with the contact on it there. And you'll see here, my rotor comes apart, but it's super easy to fix. Just get a screwdriver in there and pry one of the springs open. That'll fit right back in. Now it's still stuck for some reason, so I'm going to remove the plug. Now it comes off easy in one piece. We're going to pull this whole thing off here. This is definitely where part of the problem I'm having is coming from. See, when I pull this off, I got a couple of rubber homemade gaskets and a homemade thrust washer there. Now, most bikes aren't going to need it, but I was trying to repair a toasted cam, so not even repair it, just make it work, but it really didn't work. If you watch the first part of this, you'll see there's several reasons why this needed to come apart. There's several reasons why it's not running. Now we're working on the valve cover gasket here. To break that RTV seal again. You don't want to damage the surface, so if you're going to go in there with something metal, you got to be real careful. And there is no valve cover gasket for this, it's just RTV. That's what it says in the manual. Just kind of basically lining the engine up here. It's not super important. Now we're going to operate the chain tensioner to pull the camshaft out. So there's two bolts down there you can see, and you want to take the top one totally out. And you want to loosen the bottom one just a little bit. And then grab a screwdriver or an Allen key, something that's thin enough to go down in the hole, and you'll feel there's a button down there, so push down the button and it'll loosen the cam chain. It'll be a little tricky if you don't have three arms here, but it can be done. I was hoping to put the screwdriver through the chain there to hold it in place, but that didn't work. So we're just going to pull it out and try and hang on to that chain for the time being. Do not drop that chain inside the case. It's going to be a nightmare to get the thing working again if you do. Now that one bolt on the side, it's got an interesting shape once you pull it out, but that holds your chain tensioner in place. It's going to have to come out before the head and the jug will come off. And then that long vertical one, that secures the jug to the case, so take that off too. Now the head is free. So whatever you're using to hold the chain there, remove that. Pull those bolts out. again, don't drop that chain. As you can see, we've exposed the top of the piston there. Now you can remove the jug. And we're in. Now let's clean up the head a little bit here. A bunch of oil in there still, and metal shavings and sludge. Just examining the camshaft a little bit. I know it's ruined anyways. Get that gasket off of there. You'll notice it's sitting on one of those dowels, which allows oil to flow. We'll just clean off the inside of the head here, where the valves are. And now, let's remove the valves and clean them. This thing's a bit of a nightmare to get lined up properly, but once you do and start getting it tightened down, it's not too bad. Now, this is my first time using this thing, so you can see I was struggling a bit. What you ought to do is just let the thing rest on the head. See, I've got it now. That way when you're turning it, it's just putting pressure on the head, so it's not going anywhere. But anyway, there's a couple little clips on the top of the valves. You need to get those out. They're like little half cones. It's all pressure fit together. This is not a detailed video on how to do valves. Pull out those valve springs, your washer, and you can pull the valve out. I was hoping to take off the valve stem seals, but because I didn't have extra ones, I didn't want to wreck them pulling them off. I did end up getting extra ones eventually. I just put in brand new valves. But in this case, I'm just using what I got at the time and trying to make do. I carefully clean the valve seat. And then cleaning the exhaust port. It's really not necessary, but you should always check if your exhaust gasket's in good shape. It's like a copper crush washer. You'll see that small hole in the top of your head. It's designed to catch little bits of metal, so make sure you clean it out really well. And you can rebuild your valve and repeat the same process on the other one. Next, you want to pull the piston out. The rings on these pistons are really thin. They're really hard to get out. Always cover the engine. You don't want anything falling in, and then push the wrist pin out once you've got everything loose. Boom. Finally, put the new piston together. You got 5 rings for a 4-stroke. Start with the oil rings. You got 2 super thin flat ones. You got 1 weird looking corrugated one. So it goes flat, corrugated, flat. They can be tricky to get in there properly. So I like to start with the corrugated one first. I think it's easier. And you can add the thin rings after, one on top and one on the bottom. See that nice new piston right there? Ooh, slick. Now, carefully install the piston rings. They're way harder to break than they seem, but still relatively fragile. Once you've got them on, be sure that the ring gaps are not close together, not one on top of the other. Spin them until they're away from each other. But that's it for now. In the next part, we'll rebuild the engine. Like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Also, check out my other YouTube channel, youtube.com/chaosdubs.